What do you think you're doing right now, sir? Hey, yo. Yay, we're back with Space Ahsoka build part 2. I didn't include any video of the Pepakura process because I already posted about it in the Rebels Ahsoka video, so go check that one out if you really want to know kind of how these all go together. I haven't tried it on yet. The initial one that I did for Rebels from the same maker fit perfectly, so I don't have any doubts. We're finally into the patterning stage. This is where I get more excited. So they're all cut out. I did label them. I figured out the patterning, I think last night, and then almost cut it out without the registration marks. And then I did remember the registration marks, and I did remember the main labels to all of these, the big black numbers, the bolder ones. And then I did do a quick rundown and be like, okay, these are the blue ones, just for my brain when I'm cutting them out. Although I wish I had done white and something not red for some reason, because I don't notice it, but at least do notice the blue. There's only really a couple, 3 pieces in white, or yeah, in white. Most of it is that really, really dark blue. Because this one, I think I'm gonna do in white, but it's gonna get covered up or something. But then I forgot. This is also really helpful when I'm putting them together because I forget lots of things. So I did go through and label what touches what. But yeah, these are done. So now I get to cut out things, which is both exciting and scary at the same time. I have no idea why, but for some reason I felt the need to talk about supplies for something like 20 minutes through like 4 to 5 different videos. So I'm just gonna break it down here. There's a lot of stuff here. There's elbows, there's hose, this is stuff for everything that I did for this project, and I used most of these supplies, and you can see that I'm comparing things on there. But yeah, this elbow I used for the respirator kind of portion of a Lekku. I ended up gluing some O-rings to those to make it a little bit more like the shape. It's still not right, but whatever, it's close enough. The tubes you saw a few seconds before are also for joining the bottom of the Lekku to those tubes, and then to the other respirator thing too. So there's a couple different places that I use those tubes from the funnels. The main fabric for this part of the build is this really, really dark blue navy jersey knit fabric. I think they might have even called it like midnight blue. It worked really well, and it had a decent amount of stretch, so it may help the Lekku to kind of move like they should. And then I used this lighter blue that's pretty close to the color of the flight suit. It's just a poly cotton from Walmart, and it worked really well for the middle panel. This white pillowcase is what I used for the back portion of the Lekku, the middle back, and it was an absolute nightmare to use. It frayed like crazy. I would not recommend. 0 out of 10 stars. It was garbage. I did, however, not learn my lesson because I didn't want to use any more supplies and than what I already had, so I used it for another part of the build, and it was still just gross, and yuck, don't use it. Just buy a cotton. Another jersey net would have been perfect, honestly, but I used what I had. This cheap face shield is also what I used for the face shield but I basically ended up taking everything off. I didn't use the respirator part, like the filter part of it. I don't think I even used the same elastic. If I did, it's the one that I have now is it velcros in the back, but I took the outer bit of this, the rubber part, all comes off. So I just took that whole thing off and basically just rebuilt her mask to be a little bit more like the shape in the show.
That's probably really close to my face and I have no idea. Anyhow, I got this all laid out and I have all of my blue pieces, and I had my blue pieces and my white pieces separated, and now they're all together because I realized, and this could be completely wrong, this could be my brain just being ridiculous, but I'm gonna mark up the bottom of this fabric with a whole bunch of registration lines. So I think, at least in my brain, this makes sense, that I need to take these and actually flip them over and put the registration marks on that, because that's going to be this would be like the back side of the fabric, just like this is the back side of the fabric. I think that's what I need to do. I guess we won't know until I cut everything out and piece it all together, but I'm hoping that that is what I should be doing. So I'm going to use this to trace my registration lines, and hopefully that works. So yesterday was the best. I think I lost video. I showed this whole process and then it went away. So what I ended up doing was taking all of these pieces and taking them and putting them on this cheap little light that I have, and finding all of the registration marks from this and putting it on there, so we could trace them on this side, so that these should all be reversed since I'm cutting them and writing on the inside. So that's my theory. Hopefully it's right. We'll find out.
I don't know how easy it is to see here, but I initially started with chalk, and while it did show up pretty well on the dark fabric, I was afraid that it wasn't going to stay on very well, and it didn't go on super smoothly. It was kind of a pain and came like jaggedy on the fabric just because it wanted to stretch with it. So I used the chalk pens, and they ended up being totally fine and not bleeding through like I initially thought they would. When there's a lot of things to remember in a project, I often forget. So I ended up drawing on, after tracing out and drawing the registration marks, I drew in the, oh yeah, you can see that I forgot that the middle panel, I traced the middle panel here and then realized, oh no, that's not the right thing. So I just put my knee pad pattern over top of it. But yeah, the middle Lekku is white, not blue, so instead of wasting, I just kind of, this is going to be the inside. Anyhow, you can see that I traced everything out for the seam allowance, because otherwise I was going to absolutely forget to include seam allowance when I cut it out. This armor has quite a bit of the quilted look to it, like all of her stuff, but I didn't want to use batting on this like I did the other one, because I didn't know about how it would stretch and react with the rest of the Lekku bits. So I did these running stitches so that when I flip it over on the right side out, you can get the details of the stitches, but not all the lines that I drew. So I wanted straight lines. So I ended up just kind of using this side as a dot to dot to continue the lines and make it much better. There's something I discovered later on that probably would have worked better than this, but oh well.
It's kind of roughly pinned up and definitely needs sewing. This is a little floppy because those, I need to probably pin those together to help with some of this flop. But I think it's going to work. It's really, really rough. And I'm gonna have to do a decent amount of sewing. But I think, just judging from the back and what I see here, this is coming along. So I'm currently putting my template all back together because I've sewn this up and forgot that the front panel is actually almost like the same color as the flight suit, which is, this will be slightly different, but whatever. It'll be close enough. So I had to take that out of there. But aside from that, I'm trying to figure out how things need to connect because this fit on my head. In fact, it was a little big on my head, which is good. I put that on my head and I even stuffed it for just like stability with some polyfill, which is why it looks furry now, furrier than before. And anyhow, I'm still trying to figure out where all these little bits connect. So now I have this apart. I can figure out this. My head hurts. I'm sure it's not as hard as my head made it. I was able to figure out the vinyl one with no problem when I worked on that in the fall, but this one is hurting my head. Yep.
Once I got some things figured out and got it stuffed a little bit more, it did seem to fit a little bit better. As usual, I think it just needed a little bit of a connection point to kind of pull it down, but it still wasn't fully right. And even further on in the build, up until literally like days before the con, it wasn't right, and I rebuilt some panels and stuff on it to make it fit a little bit better, because you'll see at the end of this that when I spin around, you can still see my neck like a lot. Like my hairline is very clearly visible. After this fit test of the Lekku, I grabbed some bias tape and started just pinning it on like this to the seams in kind of an X formation so that it would go over the blue and then the white from one side to the other and then the opposite way again. I know this is probably not how you're supposed to use the bias tape, but thank goodness the colors were pretty dark, so I think they were fairly forgiving of my sewing sins, and it worked out okay.
Okay, so quick update. I painted these two little, I can't remember what size they are. I have since erased any markings on their elbows, and there's an O-ring at the end of these. I don't know if I looked for a while for tubing that looked like this or closer, and this is what I ended up going with. I painted it with this old, well, it's probably not that old. Anyhow, this folk art paint that I had in steel gray. It's not the best paint job. I will probably go over it at least one more time, try to smooth it out, and maybe do a light sanding. I don't know. I'm trying to let go of perfection. Once again, it's not the best paint job. And I also tried to kind of like fill in some gaps with the super glue. But yeah, I super glued. I did some research, found out that super glue is great for rubber.
What I ended up doing with this tubing was I cut off, so the bottom of the funnel tube, I cut into the bottom so that it would taper and glue into the elbow. The problem is that while the super glue worked really, really well to get the PVC and the rubber stuck together, it was not good at keeping this, whatever the plastic is made out of, to the PVC glued, and I think that glue also probably needed a little bit of give. Like, it needed to be flexible because everything else was kind of being moving in there. What I ended up using was just dumping a whole bunch of hot glue and then a little bit of the E6000, and then I wrapped it in like painter's tape for a little bit, for like 24 hours, just to make sure that like the E6000 had cured. The hot glue was kind of just to keep it in place. It held up for the whole con that way. But yeah, then I took the bias tape and stuck tubing or some cordage in it and just sewed those together to kind of make this pleated look, just because I was using what I already had. I did the same thing with the vinyl. I kind of made my own little bias tape section with the vinyl and then sewed them all together that way. So the first two were kind of layered on top of each other, and then the bottom one I sewed facing the other one so that I would flip it out and it would look more finished than the bottom of the other did. The other thing is, this is really messy looking, so I ended up going back and getting some of that gray that I used on the elbow and putting it onto the vinyl, and then painting some matte black onto the back of this sew job here, just to clean it up and make it less obvious. Fortunately, it's what's touching my shoulder, so literally no one sees that part, but I really wanted to make sure that it was not going to stand out at all. So this is the thing I probably took the most artistic license with for the Lekku. This is part of an attachment for for the vacuum for vent hose. I sliced down the back and retaped it back up with electrical tape so that it kind of matched the paint job that I already did. And on the inside, I cut it out, all the little grippy bits that it had, and so that it would fit and kind of stretch over the back of the Lekku. And it worked pretty well, and it's close enough for me because I was running out of time and patience to try to build this. I also ended up buying all these O-rings that I eventually hand stitched all of them on, just kind of looped them on just here and there. It was kind of random stitches, but they held in place really well. And then I ended up, because there would still be gaps after I sewed it all on, I ended up taking that same black just to kind of fill in the gap there between the vent hose thing and the O-rings to just make it less obvious that it's white underneath. Like the back of the other tubing, this one wasn't going to matter either because it was actually touching my back too.
So clearly you have to figure out this fogging issue. And then I have to figure out a way to clip this to this, maybe Velcro, maybe something else, just to keep it from slipping, because it does not take much to undo this. But I just need to put the things back on this and then start building the rest of it. But so the elbows are the only thing left of the Lekku, aside from this that's already slipping. But yeah.
Looking at it now, you can see that the mannequin version was also having a problem with like keeping the Lekku down. You can see the ears and the back. Ugh, it's a mess.
Okay, so I, as you can see, made some modifications to this. I eventually will go back and fix this. I'll rip the seams out and get a better version of this going. Just like maybe, I don't know how, I kind of just pieced this on top of the other one, so I will, yeah, when I'm not in a con crunch, I will take care of this Frankensteining here. But I ended up
reworking this because I didn't like how it fit my head. Plus, when I would put the visor thing on, that also didn't fit. It would poke up. So now I still have the ability, and I think I'm probably gonna do what I did my other leg, who was just stick a button here and then stick a piece of elastic. The other thing is, so I also need to poof this a little bit. I took a lot of stuffing out before to get my head into this. Basically, I tore some stitches down here so that this joined a different spot. And the other thing I need to do before is just get a little bit more of the bias tape and just finish this element off so it goes all the way down. And then stuff the ears particularly. I don't know, I might actually even get some foam to stick in there so that they are more there instead of kind of floppy. But I need to stuff so a little bit more fluff here and here. I think the back is actually fine, but maybe a little bit more on the top, just to get it to sit up a little bit more and just have a little bit more volume to it. Good news is I don't have any swim cap on right now, which I will later, or at least a headband. I'll have something on, and it's actually keeping my hair contained, which is good because I have a lot of hair. But yeah, I adjusted the top and this is much better. This was initially just for the back, for me to tighten it in the back, and now it goes over my chin, so it's like pulling back here. So I might actually just take this out again and move it up closer to where my ears are so that it pulls it closer to my face naturally. So this is mostly done. I just have to get one little bit of tubing on this to join it to this. I got this painted today. I need to get the like little collar thing for this. Ideally, I think I'm gonna have something, because it looks like something kind of goes over it and covers it up to about that part in the pictures. So I just need to find something that will go over this. These are extra bits from this tubing to see if it goes. Actually, this does go over this really, really well. So I think I might have to figure out, it's like making a coupler, and then have a piece of this or something. This doesn't quite fit into this, so I kind of have to figure out a way to, I might even just be crunching the ends of this to stick it into, basically just to give this something to purchase. But yeah, that's a problem for a bit later. I ended up taking the outside of the visor off and reshaping it to be a little bit more like hers. Plus it helps it to sit off my face a little bit more. It's all fingerprinty and and like fog residue and tape residue. I've been messing with it a lot, so I'm also, this is really rough. It was just me just like literally piecing pieces together the other day. I need to heat it up and hope that it doesn't mess the visor up. And I need to just kind of clean up some of the edges, and I'm also gonna leave a couple of pieces. I have like, I don't know what to do with them. I have spacers for these so that it sits a little bit off my face a little bit even more, but it also this also sits off my face more. So it still fogs some, but it's not nearly as much because it's coming out the bottom like fully now. So we'll see if I can stand a whole day in con like that. And I don't know if I want to bring both Lekku or not, so I don't know. It's getting close. thus began the long process of reforming this mask. I did heat shape this before I took it out to the garage, and I also added these registration marks so that it was hopefully easier to put all of these different layers together, because there's multiple layers, sometimes on the outside, on the inside, they join in weird angles. I literally, like I said, I literally had scraps and I just started piecing it together and hoping that I would fill it in and it would be okay, and honestly it ended up being pretty okay as far as how it filled in. But yeah, I glued it to each other and to the mat, or like the plastic itself, and yeah, it was a long process, but it ended up working and looking better than it did with the rubber that it came with. So I am happy that I did take the time to do this, even though it was a pain. It really does look so much better, even now, before it's even painted or beveled. Speaking of beveling, this is me taking more shape to her upper bit, because there is definitely more of it's not like a full thing, kind of tapers down, and they turn white. So the whole strip across, I kind of beveled out that area, and then I started cleaning up all of the edges. And this is why you wear a mask, because look at my hands. This is my clothes, my hands, they are all covered in that foam. And guess what? If you're not wearing a mask, that is in your lungs. So that's fun. Wear a mask.
Got this sewed up. This is just, I don't know if it's like insulation foam. I think I took a picture or something of it earlier. Yeah, so that's there. And the last thing I did, I'll probably do one more thing tonight. We'll see. It's almost 1 o'clock. I don't think this part will take long, but I don't know. So I rubber cemented up this whole thing today, and it's been mostly sanded. I just realized that there's like a spot right there that I'm gonna get nitpicky about, and probably gonna try to just, I think I started to maybe bevel the inside and then got distracted, so I'm gonna try to do an inside bevel, just like a little one, and then try to get some of these. Anyhow, I don't know what heat I need to spray this so that I can have better success and less layers of the spray. Plastidip. Because if you don't heat treat it, the Plastidip takes longer. But I'm also going to try to fill all of these gaps, because I literally just puzzle pieced this together with zero thought of the future, because I didn't think it was going to work. And it was just me doing a hack job. So I have to figure that out, but I need to heat treat it before I do any of that. So hopefully tomorrow, weather's gonna suck and it's gonna be really cold, but I'm gonna go for it anyhow. I'll take my umbrella out there and spray it. But yeah, after I did all that, I did both sides, because I'm gonna Plastidip both sides just to keep it more protected, because my face is gonna be on this, so I don't want it to be just bare foam. But yeah, the idea is to at least Plastidip this so this is somewhat sealed, so that my makeup and face oils aren't like immediately ruining this. I would like some longevity to it, so yeah. But yeah, that's the process. I've gotten way more done than I thought I was going to get done, so
I'm actually really, really happy. I didn't think I was going to get a lot of this done. I think the last major thing after finishing this mask is just figuring out how to attach it, which I think I'm just going to put... I'm actually just going to do the same thing I did to the other thing, which is I think I'm going to stick buttons. Maybe. Buttons and a loop, maybe. Because it seemed to work really well for the other one. So if I can loop, but that one seems like a pain. Maybe just an elastic loop on the buttons instead of like fishing it through. Just doing like, you know, just a loop, because I have what I used for my other Lekku is, let's see if I can get into my sewing cabinet and find it. This stuff. Which for the other one is fine because it's literally just attaching my crown to my Lekku. Totally fine. That bad boy will have 3 points, I think, for connection. I think I'm going to connect it on both sides of my temple and on the top to keep the Lekku here instead of slipping around. And taking 3 of these off is going to be a pain in the butt. The alternative is I also thought about making kind of tabs in the fabric, and then clipping a clip onto those tabs so that it just snaps. So the snap should come on and off fairly easy, but the problem is I don't want it to come off too easy. So I don't know, I'll keep you updated on that. But yeah, so she's almost done and I don't know how this happened, but I'm not gonna complain. All right, this is my last thing for tonight. I ended up heating it up. It's still wet, obviously, but I took the Quick Seal Plus, so it is covered in itself, but I use this to fill gaps and stuff in the foam, and because this thing is like so gappy, it's not going to fill everything, but it'll really, really help. I also have noticed whenever I use this that even with sanding, I have a hard time once it's been painted not noticing those kind of differences in texture. So this time I just kind of covered the whole thing in it, and then I'll plan to like just take a really fine sandpaper to it to maybe make it less obvious. But yeah, this is also part of why I covered this both sides with the stuff. I mean, number one, it's because I'm gonna spray stuff, but I knew I was gonna do this, so hopefully what's underneath is pretty protected. But yeah, so hopefully these gaps, you can still face it. Like, no matter how I took water and smoothed it out, but it's still, there are still textures, which I'm hoping will be helped a little bit by some sandpaper. But yeah, I'm trying to make this, these will still show up some, but hopefully not so much anymore. Now these are all kind of filled in, so we'll see. But it's the first time covering the whole thing, so yeah, we'll see. Also, I don't know what this helmet reminds me of now that it's covered, but it reminds me of something. But yeah, anyhow, that's the last thing for tonight. As we got closer to the con, things got crazier and busier, and I apparently never recorded anything of the plastic dipping. I don't know, but it's not done. It's not here. So this is it covered in paint. I used glossy acrylic paint that I had for the black bits, and I can't remember what kind of paint it was. It's an acrylic kind for the white, but it was not going on very smoothly, so I took a wet sand to it just to kind of smooth it out, and honestly it made a massive difference. The other thing is that I would have spray painted it, but I didn't want to put any more tape on the glass, because I remembered Plastidip doesn't respond well to the tape, so you have to be really careful. So I took off the tape before it really messed with the Plastidip, and I was gonna peel layers of the Plastidip off instead. So we had to deal with hand painting it, which was kind of a pain in the butt, but it ended up being fine once sanded. It's like I said, it's still got texture, but it's much better. Lekku is done. Visor, I got wiped up. Definitely scratched it up in the process, but it's fine enough. I attached the Velcro, or the elastic, to it to hold it onto my head, as well as then stitched some Velcro so that it is adjustable, but also just so it's easier to get off my face, because these two kind of have to work together to stay on. But the problem is putting my makeup on. The way that I was going to do it, I was going to end up smearing it before I even got stuff on, so I made this. This was easier to take on and off just by making it elastic, so that it'll elastic behind my head, instead of me having to stretch, or should I say it'll Velcro behind my head instead of me having to stretch the whole thing to put it on, and then it like ends up going on kind of like this, like it'll be around my neck, and then it kind of hangs there for a minute before I can pull it up, which means that it's just smeared all kinds of stuff around. So hopefully this will be a little bit more stable. The other thing I did was this, as I had this elastic thing that I did. This is what I did with the other Lekku. Make sure that's all dry. Yeah, it is. But I painted it blue because it does stick out a skosh. So now when it's on, it will be less obvious. So there's a button right here, and this is one of those like elastics with buttons like you would adjust like a little kid's pants or something. So the strap goes around the neck, and then this comes up. And we'll clip onto there. I don't want to do it now on the chance that I will stretch out the elastic, but it blends in fairly well. I mean, it's there, but it blends in pretty well. And this comes down some too, because it also has an elastic that goes around. I honestly never thought I was going to get as far as I did with this thing. I really wanted to call it quits on this Lekku, and I'm so happy that I kept going. There is stuff that I will want to modify later, but honestly, for my first round, I am very, very happy with how it came out. So thanks for checking it out and following along, and keep following along. I'll have some more videos here shortly being posted of some of the other progress of this. Thanks for watching, and please follow and subscribe. Thanks. Bye.
very sleepy at 3 a.m. Do you want to go to bed? Would you like me to carry you upstairs? Do you want to go night nights?